Ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 7 of Destination Unknown, a solo travel experience. Thanks for being here. I've been through many countries at this point. Iceland, England, Ireland, Spain, Morocco, Portugal, France, and now I have just traveled to Brussels in Belgium with my friend Toby. This is Toby.
Make love and stuff.
The night that we got to Brussels, we did some bar hopping, and we found our favorite little bar called Barbeton, which was a bar at night and a cafe during the day.
Just the coolest. But that's just the best idea.
It is. So we spent some time there, and then the next morning we went back there to get coffee and pastries, and we played music outside of it for about an hour or two. They gave us free beer, and we were just out there jamming.
Girl, I love you all the time. Hold me, love me, hold me. Oh, better Valerie, Valerie, why don't you come on over, Valerie?
It was there we figured out our next plans, which we decided to go to Budapest in Hungary. That was about 3 days away. Now, we decided we could do Brussels in pretty much just one day. We started with Jeanneke-Pis, which is the statue of a little girl peeing. I wrote that it was a very small statue and quite lame, but that the little girl looked very relieved. We then walked through the Grand Palace Square, which was beautiful. Next, we walked to the Manneken Pis, which is the little boy peeing. And again, wasn't very interesting. Somehow that thing got famous as hell. Good for that artist. We went to a musical instrument museum, which was fascinating. There's been loads of different types of musical instruments throughout human history, all sorts of things. We went to the comic book museum, but the line was really long and we saw that all of the comics were actually in French, which means we wouldn't be able to read them. So we skipped that one. Now, Toby plays guitar and I play drums, so many times we would pull out our instruments and play wherever we were. We were walking from the comic book museum back to our hostel, and we stumbled across this band of musicians in the middle of this big square. They had a mini drum set with them, but no drummer. So I asked if I could play. It was like 3 or 4 dudes busking in the middle of a courtyard. They had a mini drum set. I was like, hey, can I play? And you're like, hey, can I play? And we jammed with them for a while. I tried to record some of it, but it was pretty much a terrible recording. But I remember a lot of people came and big crowds and were watching and put a bunch of money in their guitar case, and we just let them keep the money. We're like, and I wrote also that they were a bunch of Russian dudes.
It was like a Russian group, and they said that they just that's what they do over the summer is they just travel from place to place and just busk, and that's how they make their money and pay for their travel. It's that is the coolest freaking thing, man. That's
Yeah. I wrote so fun with an underline in my journal. And as we found, you can actually make a ton of money. That one night that actually it was the same night we stayed out and busked. It was about 3 hours and we made 65 euros.
Really?
Yeah. We made a ton of money. Remember, we just had a huge bag of coins that we had to try to spend.
I just remember we were at a cafe when there's a picture that I have with my fingers on the piles of coins.
Yeah. So we made good money, and that was a very fun night. People rapped and beatboxed over our music. Yeah, there was the bridesmaids. I danced with a bride-to-be. But it was cool to know that if we were just to play music outside, we could probably pay for our hostel and our food during the day if we needed to. It was just a powerful night, dude, bro. We just got a bottle of wine and playing music for a couple hours. I lived for those experiences, random music experiences. On August 13th, Toby and I took a bus over to Amsterdam. We both had a special mint on that bus, and Toby introduced me to Black Mirror, the show on Netflix. It had just come out, and I spent the entire ride, the couple hours over to Amsterdam, watching that show. I was impressed. Very cerebral and very interesting concepts. Toby and I are both nerds for music, so another thing we did on the bus was listen to music at the same time. Actually, I wrote down that we synced up our audio on the bus over, and we listened to Chance's album, Coloring Book. We listened through that. That was amazing. And then we listened to Dark Side of the Moon as soon as we got into Amsterdam, walking to our hostel. Yeah, we did that quite a bit. It's funny because there's an app for that now, which would make it a lot easier.
There's an app for that.
Because you remember we're just like trying to get the exact moment, like ready, set, go. Yeah. Amsterdam is known obviously for its legal cannabis as well as legal truffles, which are psilocybin mushrooms. And those were two things that we wanted to experience in Amsterdam, of course, right? Amsterdam is a great place for those things. It's very beautiful. The canals, there's houseboats, the trees and rivers, everything is just very nice to look at, and the people seemed very nice as well. We went to our first coffee shop, which is what they call a shop where they sell cannabis and you can smoke it in there.
Hey, what's up, you guys? Here, we're about to go to the drug opera. We're gonna get...
Then we went to this beautiful park, and you changed the strings on your guitar, and we played some music for a couple hours as usual. Insert clip.
Yeah.
On the other side. Right here alone. Say hi. The green grass fool you.
Also, that picture that you took of me is like one of my favorite. Even though I don't smoke that much weed, but it still is just like there's something so like wholesomely hippie about it that it's just like
the joint hanging out of your mouth and changing the guitar strings.
It almost doesn't even feel like me. Like it's like a different person. Like it's so outside of my norm that it stands out to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like it.
My other favorite picture is you rolling your first good joint. You're just sitting there cracking up while you have your freaking beautiful joint. We also went to the Dalí and the Banksy Museum. The Dalí Museum was nice, but not as nice as the one that was in Spain. And the Banksy Museum was kind of hilarious. Banksy likes to play jokes on people in general, right? He's a street artist. I remember the Banksy Museum being quite funny because a lot of his art's about like the system and how it plays you and how his art isn't really art. And yet you're paying to still go see his art, a picture of his street art in another place. So you're like, damn, he won. Like, he totally pulled us in here and we're being made fun of by him now. But that's why I like him so much, is he plays with perception and all of that.
Music kept being big, and like a lot of the like pinnacle moments for me on our trip were like music related, and that night was amazing.
Well, so first of all, we went to this bar, this open mic. There's this badass band playing. They were really good. Singer was amazing, and they said, "Does anyone want to play? Like, are you sure?" Nobody was coming up, and you were like, "Man, come on, we have to go." And I'm like, "I don't know. Like, I haven't drummed in a while, and like, come on, we have to go." And we went up and played, and yeah, you had you lead for a bit. You played Johnny Be Good. We probably played some Amy Winehouse because we were on that vibe for most of the trip. That was so much fun. It was a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
And again, pushing me out of my comfort zone, which is the reason why I was traveling. And yet it was still a hard lesson to learn, you know, to just take up those experiences. But once it happens, a lot of fun.
And we tried to go to the Anne Frank house, but the line was like insane. Mm-hmm. And we found out that you had to have like a 2-week prior reservation or something.
Like, oh.
But get down to business. The whole reason we went to Amsterdam was to do mushrooms.
I mean, a big part of it, yeah. The next day would be the day that we would try some truffles together. We went to this place called Kokopelli, which is a smart shop, is what they call it, where they sell truffles. And they had an area in the back of the shop with couches and drawing materials, these windows that look out onto a canal.
I don't know if we found it through a friend or something, or if you found it on Google, but like the little shop that we like did it at was amazing and had like this like mother figure that like owned and ran the place that like we saw when we got there. She was like helping somebody that was having a bad trip.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it was just like it felt very, very safe.
We didn't really know which one to pick, but that one was called Kokopelli, which is the tattoo that I have on my back of a Kokopelli. So we're like, that's probably the one. And yeah, very comforting space. Like everyone's like, take your time, like take a little bit. We have a kitchen if you need food or water. It was just a very wholesome space. So it's just a nice place where people can sit and chill and trip if they want to do so. We were both nervous about doing it. I had taken psilocybin mushrooms in the past, and I enjoyed my experiences, but it had been a long time. And for Toby, this was his first time. Since him and I are so close as friends, he felt like I would be a comfortable person to try that with for the first time. And it turns out that was perfect. We had a very nice time. I was nervous as well. Pretty much every time. Like, you should be nervous because you never know what's going to come of it. But I was very happy to be with you for that experience. And it turned out to be a really, really good experience for both of us. The main lessons that I got out of it were remembering that I have tics, nervous tics, right? And I was like so calm, and I was like, wow, I don't need to drum it on things like every moment of every day. Like, I can just relax. Usually I'm always... And that had completely stopped for me. I felt very still and relaxed. And then remembering that our family is like one of the most important things in our existence, and that we need to really reach out to them as much as possible, that the smallest text or call can really make a difference in their day, and then also make you feel good as well. We had been talking earlier in our travels about how we were both pretty bad at texting back our moms or staying in contact with people we love. So we use this experience as a reminder to start telling people we love them more.
I think what was so interesting about that was like we were in the same room. It was raining outside. It was like gross outside, but the inside of the room was painted like blue sky with clouds. And I remember feeling like very, very safe. I cried, I think, like 2 or 3 times, and it was just like such a like insane relief and release, and like I just like felt like a weight was lifted off of me. That like weight that I didn't even know that I was holding on to, just like totally melted away. We both had our headphones in. I listened to a lot of music. I know you were writing and drawing, and I was like typing out some notes on my phone. But that we both had the family thing was like such an important like lesson that for some reason it just never like took the time to really think a lot about. And I remember like that we both like called our families after, and there's a lot of sweetness kind of in that trippy space. It was a really beautiful experience.
Yeah, that's a connotation that's not associated with drugs in general, is like a sense of love and like connection to the world. Psychedelics, I think, more have that than anything else. Like a lot of drugs like make anything that you have inside of you just more extreme than it was already, including alcohol, right? People who are angry in general, like when they drink, they get angrier, that kind of thing. But psilocybin especially opens up this part of you that you don't get to see very often. In the beginning part of it, we both got very relaxed. We like melted in the couches. Pretty tired feeling. I closed my eyes, and the geometric patterns on the back of my eyelids were absolutely amazing. I would keep smiling to myself, surprised that my brain had the power to create these visuals for me. It went quick from there. We started to try to talk in the beginning, but what happens often with psilocybin is that your thoughts are going faster than your words can, and when you start talking, it feels kind of empty. Like your words don't actually mean anything, that they mean more inside of your head than they do outside of your mouth. So we were like trying to talk, and we're like, I don't know, maybe we'll just draw or something. I had a funny experience where I have an album of music I recorded on my phone. I listen to it every once in a while, and I very much enjoy my music. So I put it on my headphones, and I thought that I would get a new perspective on my music. But really, it felt unimportant. Listening to my music didn't give me any emotion. In fact, I felt like I should just turn it off immediately and create something new. So instead, I turned it off, and Toby and I talked a lot. But then we did get to a point where the words were matching up, and we talked for a very long time, just eyes locked. We talked about all sorts of things, of course, perception, and there was a key word you would keep saying while we were traveling. Something like fascinating or
interesting.
Interesting, that's the one.
Got it. Just this is a very high thought, but I was like, I'm gonna write a book just called Interesting, and it's just gonna be all interesting.
I mean, that's what the whole travel experience was interesting, but especially under the influence of psilocybin, it was just like everything was extra interesting. We talked to one of the young girl workers there. She was telling us about herself, and I felt like I could soak up information forever and just hear all about her experience. I wrote that I never felt so comfortable in my own skin before. I felt confident and calm. I wrote that I felt very still, peaceful, aware. I had clear senses, and I felt grand.
Just a really, really great experience.
Mm-hmm.
For something that I think on the surface felt very scary to me, going into it, it was like could not have had a better outcome. That I just like everything did fully like melt away, and I was just able to really enjoy and kind of like discover what was under there.
Mm-hmm.
In my brain. So yeah, it was really, really awesome.
I'm very excited for psilocybin to be used in clinical research and also with therapy. That's a big thing that's being pushed right now through the FDA, and I think it's going to do a lot of good for a lot of people in a therapeutic setting where they can really open themselves up and go through trauma and all that. That excites me a lot. As we were coming down from that experience about 4 or 5 hours later, we went out into the city, got Argentinian ribs. That was a good choice.
Yeah. Ribs! The best meal I've ever had in my entire life.
Because you're so famished, like mentally and physically, and then like we found this place with Argentinian ribs and like French fries and just like ate so much food. And then we went out to play pool for an hour or two after that, and we slept well. It was just a solid day. Now, just as a reminder, psilocybin mushrooms in Amsterdam are legal, and it's not an experience for everyone. I personally like changing my mindset sometimes and experiencing new things, especially with somebody that I love, but I'm not condoning the use of any substance, not even alcohol or anything. I think that every person makes their own choices. If they decide to experiment with things, that's great, but you gotta do what's right for you. What is right for you, man? Another thing that's legal in Amsterdam, which you might know of, is prostitution. We just did a quick walk through the red light district, which is where there's all these windows of ladies in there showing themselves off, trying to entice you to come in. We didn't want to get involved with that at all, but it was interesting to look at it and kind of see the vibes of the whole place. Felt a little sketchy, felt a little off. Obviously, from where we come from in America, that's not a normal thing, and it's hard to imagine it being so. But as far as we know, they say the girls are treated well, paid fairly, and it's their choice to be in that business. If that's the way they want to make money, they can do that. And that is something that I believe in, which is freedom of choice. I don't like too much government control over what people are doing. So it's an interesting concept having prostitution be legal in your country. So those were the 2 days that Toby and I had in Amsterdam. They were quite eventful, very fun. And from Amsterdam, we'd be going over to Budapest. We stayed in Hungary for a while. We had a lot of good times there, and I'll tell you about that in episode 8 of Destination Unknown, a solo travel adventure.